by S.A. Avalar. Today we're going to be working on a part of the story where the Taliban, they were trying to ambush the Marine squad, and but they get caught. So we'll just jump right into it. The Taliban squad follows a strict path. The Taliban squad follows a strict path that was covered by trees, and and winded through the cornfields. There is a small path they must cross. There is a small path they must cross in between the tree line towards the dry canal. This is a small dry canal. Fuck. Man, I'm fucking fucked up. Alright. There's a small path they must cross. Okay, the Taliban squad follows a strict path that was covered by trees and winded through the cornfields. We'll just take out that there is. Their objective is a small path that they would have to cross. Their objective is a small path that they would have to cross in order to avoid American drones and cameras. I mean, yeah, drones weren't really that popular yet, but okay. They see that the route is clear. They walk through the clearing. They see. We don't have to use that because they don't know if the site is clear. They calmly walk through the clearing on high alert. Calmly walking through high alert. They walk through the clearing on high alert for Marines or an attack helicopter. For Marines, for Americans. They walk through the clearing on high alert for Americans or the sound of a helicopter. Death comes quick and from random places in their line of work. Let's see. They walk through the clearing on high alert for Americans or the sound of a helicopter. But with a relative calmness, since death came quick. They walk through the clearing on high alert for Americans towards the sound of a helicopter, but with relative calmness, since death came quick and from random places in their line of work. Not in their line of work. We know they're Taliban soldiers. Death came quick and from random places. I don't know what I'm hiding. I'm drinking coffee. They walk through the clearing on high alert. Okay. A sound from the Taliban platoon's left flank. A sudden sound from the Taliban platoon's left. From the platoons, we'll just go with the platoon. With a sudden sound from the platoon's left flank, the bushes rustle, and the bushes rustle slightly, but is enough for the platoon to open fire. There we go. Oh, I gotta put a 30-minute timer on this one today. I recorded a goddamn sorry, I'm dying. I recorded like an hour video last night and we recorded like less than half. It bummed me out because I'm not checking. And I'm recording this on a fucking 12-year-old laptop. Nice equipment on a 12-year-old laptop. But we'll work on it, I guess. For my millions of followers. They walked through the clearing on high alert for Americans or the sound of a helicopter, but with relative calmness since death came quick and from random places. A sudden sound from the platoon's left flank. The bushes rustle slightly, but is enough for the platoon to open fire for the group. Group of battle-hardened Taliban to open fire on the movement. To open fire. They mow down the bushes and hit. They mow down the bushes with a wave of gunfire, while also hitting the trees. Also hitting the trees and cornfield beyond the bushes, since they were all horrible shots. No. Since they all had horrible aim. Since the entire platoon had horrible aim. Alright, a sudden sound from the platoon's left flank. The bushes, we'll say bushes about what? Bushes about 30 feet. This is American, so we're not using any of that metric system stuff. Just kidding. Let's see. They mow down bushes about 20 feet from their left. Rustle slightly, but is enough for the group of battle-hardened Taliban to open fire. They mow down the bushes. Man. They mow down the bushes with a wave of gunfire while also hitting the trees and cornfield beyond the bushes. And the cornfield beyond, since the entire platoon had horrible aim. They cease fire and the rustling stops. And the rustling bushes stop. They cease fire and the rustling bushes slow down to a stop as the fighters' eyes adjust from the flashing rifles in the dark. They cease fire and the rustling bushes slow down to a stop as the fighters' eyes adjust from the flashing rifles in the dark. Wow, flashing rifles. From flashing rifles in pitch. From flashing rifles. From flashing rifles. We'll say Mullah Hawk orders one of the new members of the platoon to creep into the bush to search the bush. Search the bush. Get it? He spots a leg, but not a human one. He pulls out a large dog bleeding out in a puddle. Sorry. My mind wandered for a second. Okay, good. Mulahak orders one of the new members of the platoon to search the bush. He spots a leg, but not a human one. He pulls out a he spots a puddle of blood. A puddle. We'll say a puddle. A muddy puddle of blood with a leg sticking out, but not a human one. He pulls out a large dying dog bleeding out. A large dying dog that leaves a large black streak behind it. The fighter looks back at the squad and smiles, and they smile back. He's holding the dead dog. The fighter looks back at the squad while holding the dying dog's head up. The fighter looks back at the squad while holding the dying dogs. This fucking key fucked up too. Okay, while holding the dying dog's head up and smiles, and the squad and the other fighters smile back. Smile back. A sudden, deep, and menacing growl from the bush. We'll leave that by itself. A sudden, deep, and menacing growl from the bush. The fighter tries to one of the fighters. We'll say all the fighters, yeah. As the fighters attempt to raise their rifles, an even larger dog lunges out and clamps its jaws around the fighter's genitalia, who drops. No, you know what? No. Okay. The fighter holding the dog drops the dead weight and attempts to raise his rifle, but an even larger dog lunges out and clamps its jaws and clamps the fighter holding the dog drops the dead weight and attempts to raise his rifle, but an even larger dog lunges out and clamps its foaming fangs around the fighter's genitalia. The fighter yells. The fighter. Better word. Screams. Synonym. Let's see. What's a better word? Screech, shrieks. What kind of sound do you make when you get your nuts bit by a humongous Afghan dog? Do you shriek? Do you screech? Well, bellows a little much. Yop is a fun word. I want to save that for later. Caterwaul. I like that. That's cool. That's a cool word. Squeal, squawk. I like screech. Shriek or screech? Shriek's a screech. Let's see. The fighter shrieks. Blood curdling. The fighter shrieks, and it shocks the squad as they try to, and it shocks the squad who are trying to zero in on the dog, who are hastily aiming their rifles at the dog. The fighter yells at his squad mates at the other fighters. The fighter with the dog clamped to his cock and balls, genitalia, because it's the beans and the franks, you know. The fighter with the dog clamped to his genitalia yells at the other fighters not to shoot, since he knows how bad their marksmanship is. He punches and pushes at the dog, at the psychotic, intense. What's intense? At the fervent. I like that. Fervent. There we go. At the fervent dog who spins. He punches and pushes at the fervent dog who spins around by the man's dehiscing genitalia. Dehiscing is a fun word. Dehiscing is like a medical term for when like skin comes apart. So like if you have like stitches together and then, you know, they dehiss, there's like skin coming apart. But it's like a nice way of saying it. So when I'm saying dehiscing genitalia, I'm saying that like his nuts and his body by a dog. Because, I mean, that never happened. It's just something cool to say. The dog finally pulls off a bloody chunk. The dog's flailing body finally like juts back. Finally pulls off a spraying bloody chunk from the fighter's groin area, and the fighter looks down at the bloody pulp where his genitalia once was, where his genitalia should be. The dog's floating body finally pulls off a spraying bloody chunk from the fighter's groin area. And continues to no. Bloody chunk from the fighter's groin area. The fighter looks down at the bloody pulp where his genitalia should be, and he could hear no sound and couldn't feel any pain. Rashid's uncle's Rashid's uncle will say, Mulahak makes eye contact with the bleeding fighter, whose head suddenly explodes, followed by a loud crack from a sniper rifle somewhere far away. Brain matter, Mulahak scans around for other dogs, then makes eye contact with the bleeding fighter, whose head suddenly explodes and is quickly followed by a loud crack from a sniper rifle somewhere far away. Brain matter splatters across Rashid and his uncle. Another Taliban fighter gets shot in the chest and another on their leg, and suddenly a loud explosion and rifles from the tree line behind them. A squad of Marines nobody saw. Rashid gets pulled into a dry canal by his uncle with bullet impacts at their feet. Mulahak checks his rifle and tells Rashid to run away, and orders Rashid to run away as fast as he can and not look back. Rashid porno minds because he's a teenager, so Rashid instantly thinks of Saba alone at the compound and doesn't think twice and pivots and runs away from the firefight. More bullets from the tree line and less from the Taliban squad. An explosion, another. Rashid's uncle looks up and sees one of his fighters exploding in midair after being exploded by an IED he buried earlier. More whizzing of bullets over his head. Rashid's uncle sees a large rock with hay behind it and decides this is where he will hide. The rest of the fighters will fulfill their martyrdom as was promised to them at their madrasas. A lot of Taliban fighters and a lot of people, they go to madrasas, you know. What is a madrasa? Let's look it up. Just for fun. Madrasa. Let's see. In the Arabic language, the word madrasa with an H simply means the same as school does in the English language. Whether that is that's not what I want. Madrasa, Pakistan, Taliban. There we go. Let's see. Nice. Yeah. Where Afghanistan's new Taliban leaders went to school. Yeah. Pakistan. Taliban sees Afghanistan in this school couldn't be prouder. Yeah, you know. Long story short, I'm not paying for that. Come on. Yeah, so nothing against, I mean, you know, you're an orphan. What else are you going to do? I'd be in a madrasa if I was in Afghanistan too. I mean, I don't blame him. He buries himself in the hay and closes his eyes and begins to pray until the shooting has stopped. Until the shooting stops. Until the shooting stops. He hears American laughter and knows his brothers are dead. He wishes them luck in the next life and closes his eyes to sleep and hopes to wake alive and free. Okay, and that's it from that perspective. Obviously, am I going to go back to this like 10 different times? Yes. The whole book needs like a million different rewrites, but it's tough. I don't use none of that ChatGPT, none of that stuff. All this has been written off the top of my drug-addled head, and in a good mood and a bad mood, little by little. Then you piece it together, and then you go back to it years later to try to clean it up and stuff. And there's parts that I recognize that I probably wrote, man, like really, really in a bad place. And there's other parts that I recognize that I wrote in a good mood. So, to try to mix those in is kind of tough, I guess. But it's worth the try because it's about the process. This book will never be read. This book will never be published. But the process is fun, and that's really what matters because it's a fun hobby, dude. Writing is cool. If you want to write and stuff, you should write. Don't go to school for it. Don't just write. Just fucking write. Right. Make this sound too while you do it. Anyway, the next chapter is going to be an ambush and demonic cherub. And this part, so what I'm doing is the Rashid parts is from the Taliban perspective. And then we're going to go immediately, an ambush and a demonic cherub is from the Marines' perspective, from Torero's perspective of the same thing, except they're witnessing it and it's going to be their perspective. So it's, what just happened to the Taliban, we're going to go kind of reverse, and then the Marines are going to see what happened, and then we're going to go from their perspective, and then we bounce back to Rashid. The Rashid part is only like 3 chapters. It gets weird at the end, of course, because, we got to keep it weird, to make it interesting. Other than that, thank you if you made it this far. I hope you enjoyed my ASMR, and see you next time.